You know, when I talk about all the things that you need to do as a startup, and I mention, you know, you don't really think about all the little nitty-gritty things that you need to do when you're thinking of the idea. But one of the things that I was adamant about on day one was to make sure that once the product's built or our marketing engine's been built, that we have the ability to track all of the data. And all the data means all the data. What are people clicking, what they're not clicking, when are they coming on, you know, absolutely everything. We have a totally data-driven approach to every single thing. And what that allows us to do is not be a startup that is based around the ego of the founder, right? Which can happen. You know, as a founder, you start a business, you think of an idea, you validate it, and then you start to think that, well, I've gotten us this far, you know, I know everything. And the risk there is you start making decisions that actually don't resonate with the market, which happens a lot. So our motto at GameStake is pivot or persevere. It's based on the data. So before we build a feature, we decide what are the key metrics this feature is going to address. Once we've identified that, we will then benchmark what would be deemed a success or failure for that particular feature. Once we've decided the metrics, we've decided the feature, we then build it and test it. And we then measure the metrics a few weeks after the feature's been out there. And then we look at the data, and that is it, the data-driven approach. If the data suggests that that feature worked, then we persevere with that particular feature and we build on it because it shows, the data shows that our users, our players like it. Conversely, if the data showed that there was a negative result on the data as a result of that feature, our players just didn't like it for whatever reason, we have no ego in this. We are building a product for the players. We will either wind it back or we'll remove the feature, or we will speak to the users and the players and try to find out what was it about that they didn't like. But if it was a bad idea, it was a bad feature, we pivot. You know, pivot or persevere. We have a hypothesis, we have a benchmark, we test it, and then we look at the data. If it worked, we persevere. If it didn't work, we pivot. And pivoting is okay. I think it's one of the things that anyone who starts a startup needs to be okay with on day one. Your ideas may not work out. They may semi-work out. You need to be very comfortable with the idea of pivoting and pivoting constantly to the point where you will eventually find optimization. Yeah, so I suppose when you're having to pivot on an idea, that is in a small way something not working out. You know, otherwise you would have persevered. And so, firstly, as I said, it's really important that when you start a startup, you know, you are okay with the idea that a lot of your ideas are not going to work out. You know, one of the cliches, be thick-skinned, be resilient. But, you know, I go back to my earlier point, it's all very well knowing the cliche. What is most important is actually having the mechanisms in place so you can actually act out on those cliches. So what do I mean by that? I knew before I started GameStake, I'm gonna get things wrong. I might think I'm a smart guy, I'm not that smart, I'm gonna get lots of things wrong. I made sure before I started GameStake that I was okay with that I will make decisions that just won't pan out. And when they don't pan out, I have the mechanisms in place to just be okay with it. Whether it's I go for a walk, read, have a cold shower, whatever it is, you need to know that you have those mechanisms in place. Mine just so happened to be that I had an upbringing that taught me life doesn't go your way a lot, and that's okay. And so for me, it was serendipity. It was just life happening to me that made me get to a point by the time I started GameStake, I had a lot of resilience built in. But some people might not have had resilience built into them. It's really important that they read, that they understand that there is more to life than money or business. There are bigger things at play. When things go wrong, it is okay. Just always understand there is another day. Just understand that anybody who has been successful has been unsuccessful before they were successful. If somebody is only successful, they've only ever tasted success, they're lucky. You don't want to rely on luck to become successful. You want to rely on your skill. If you want to be skillful, then know you're going to get lots of things wrong, and then you're going to need the tools to identify, address, and then deal with it, and then move on.